Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the news from SABA Satellite Channel from Arabic. Here are tonight's top stories.
President Al-Alimi meets UNICEF representative to discuss child-focused humanitarian efforts.
Member Presidential Leadership Council Al-Khambashi discusses Hadramaut developments with UN Envoy's Office and UNDP.
And Riyadh hosts international coordination meeting on Yemen's health sector.
Welcome back. President of the Presidential Leadership Council, Dr. Rashad Al-Alimi, received UNICEF representatives in Yemen, Peter Hawkins, to discuss the organization's humanitarian interventions. The meeting focused on health, education, child protection, combating malnutrition, vaccination, psychological support, environmental sanitation, and building local authorities' capacity to manage water systems. President Al-Alimi praised the partnership between the government and the United Nations organizations, especially UNICEF's long-standing work in Yemen since the 1970s. He said the Houthi militias' coup had damaged the humanitarian protection network and turned millions of children into direct victims of conflict through recruitment, deprivation of education and vaccines, and damage to infrastructure. The President called for expanding child-related humanitarian and development progress across the country, while gradually shifting towards sustainable recovery, institution building, and basic services. He also reaffirmed support for humanitarian workers in United Nations staff arbitrarily detained by the Houthi militia.
A presidential decree was issued today appointing a new Deputy Minister of Technical Education and Vocational Training. Presidential Decree number 13 of 2026 states in its first article that Adel Abdul Karim Al-Tahish is appointed Deputy Minister of Technical Education and Vocational Training. The second article states that the decree shall take effect from the date of its issuance and publication in the official gazette.
In Hadramaut, member of the Presidential Leadership Council, Salim Al-Khambashi, discussed security, services and development priorities with delegation from the Office of the United Nations Special Envoy for Yemen. The delegation included Azamini Bala, Head of Strategic Communications and Public Information, Tamna Ubaid from the Political Affairs Section, and Inclusion Policy Officer Ithar Shaybani. The meeting reviewed the office's current efforts in Hadramaut and its engagement with local community issues and field conditions. Al-Khambashi briefed the delegation on recent developments in the governorate, including incidents involving the looting of military, security and civilian property, and the measures taken to restore security and stability. He also highlighted service challenges, especially electricity, and praised Saudi support for Hadramaut.
In a related meeting, Al-Khambashi discussed with Abdullah bin, the representative of the United Nations Development Programme in Hadramaut, the ongoing developments, projects and future intervention plans with the governorate. The meeting discussed key projects implemented by the program across several vital sectors and their positive impact on improving essential facilities, supporting livelihoods and building local capacities. The two sides also reviewed challenges facing the implementation of some projects and ways to address them. Al-Khambashi stressed the importance of the partnership with the United Nations Development Programme and its role in supporting local authority efforts to achieve sustainable development. He also emphasized the need to align future projects with the Hadramaut's priorities and actual needs, particularly in infrastructure, capacity building, and support for social and economic stability.
Also in Hadramaut, Al-Khambashi reviewed with the National Women's Committee Hadramaut branch the concerns and needs of women in the Valley and Desert districts, stressing their role in development and stability. The meeting was attended by Deputy Governor for Valley and Desert Districts, Jum'an Barabba, and head of the National Women's Committee branch in Hadramaut Valley and Desert, Najah Al-Habshi. Al-Khambashi listened to a briefing on women's conditions in different fields, the challenges facing their participation in public and development life, and their needs in service, economic and social sectors. The meeting also reviewed programs and activities carried out by the committee to strengthen women's role and support their empowerment. Al-Khambashi affirmed his attention to women's issues and the local authorities' commitment to supporting their active participation in development and decision-making, stressing that women are essential partners in building society and achieving sustainable stability and development.
Turning to diplomatic affairs, where Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates Dr. Shaya Zindani received a copy of the credentials of Kuwait's new ambassador to Yemen, Falah bin Fahd al-Mutairi. Zindani welcomed the Kuwaiti ambassador and wished him success in his duties, stressing the deep historical and brotherly relations between Yemen and Kuwait and the shared keenness to strengthen cooperation in various fields. The meeting discussed bilateral cooperation as well as national and regional developments, including military escalation in the region and Iranian attacks on the sovereignty of several Arab countries. Zindani renewed Yemen's firm position in full support of Kuwait in the face of the Iranian attacks, including what was described as infiltration of Kuwait's Babian Island by an armed group affiliated with Iran's Revolutionary Guard. For his part, the Kuwaiti ambassador conveyed the greetings of Kuwait's leadership and affirmed his country's continued support for Yemen and its legitimate leadership.
In Aden, the Prime Minister also attended the Europe Day ceremony in an event hosted by the European Union mission in Aden, carrying political and diplomatic significance after more than 12 years of absence from Yemen. The event was held in Yemen for the first time in more than 12 years. In his remarks, Zindani said the occasion carries political and humanitarian significance beyond its ceremonial meaning. He praised the European Union's political, humanitarian and development support for Yemen, which has exceeded €1 billion since the outbreak of the war triggered by the Houthi militia. He said holding the ceremony in Aden sends an important message after the recent assassinations of Wissam Qaid and Abdurrahman al-Sha'ir, stressing that terrorism and chaos will not weaken the state of its institutions. For his part, EU Ambassador Patrick Simonet said the ceremony represents a strong message of support for the government and its reform efforts, affirming that the killing of Wissam Qaid has only strengthened the EU's determination to continue supporting Yemen.
And within the framework of international cooperation, Zindani received a UNESCO delegation to discuss ongoing projects in education, culture, heritage protection, and capacity building. The delegation was headed by Salah Khaled, Director of UNESCO's Regional Office for the Gulf States and Yemen. During the meeting, Zindani was briefed on UNESCO projects currently being implemented in education, culture, restoration and protection of historic cities, and capacity building. The meeting also reviewed future plans, including support for technical and vocational education. The Prime Minister praised UNESCO's efforts and expressed the government's appreciation for the projects implemented by the organization. He also affirmed Yemen's keenness to expand cooperation with UNESCO, building on the long-standing relationship between the two sides.
On the regional affairs, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates strongly condemned hostile act targeting Kuwait's sovereignty and reaffirmed Yemen's full solidarity with the state of Kuwait. In a statement, the ministry said the incident represents a clear violation of the sovereignty of a United Nations member state, international law, and the principles of good neighborliness. The ministry said this act reflects what it described as Iran's continued approach of exporting chaos, undermining regional security and using armed groups as tools of pressure and destabilization. Yemen reaffirmed its full solidarity with Kuwait, its leadership, government and people, and expressed support for all measures Kuwait takes to protect its sovereignty, security and stability. The ministry also called on the international community and the United Nations Security Council to take a firm stance against such violations, which is said threaten regional security, international navigation, and the global economy.
A team from the Ministry of Local Administration, led by the Minister Badr Salama, met today in Aden with the European Union delegation to Yemen, headed by Ambassador Patrick Simonet. The meeting discussed ways to support and empower local authorities across the country. Discussions also covered preparations for the Government and Local Authorities Partnership Conference, scheduled for mid-June, as well as the possibility of holding the first meeting of the Strategy Support Group in Aden alongside the conference. The meeting affirmed the European Union's continued support for development efforts and its backing for government programs related to financial and economic reforms. The ministry's team praised the European Union's approval of funding the first phase of the national strategy to empower local authorities with broader powers. This phase will focus on training and qualifying local authorities and will be implemented through the United Nations Development Programme.
In another meeting with the European Union ambassador, the Minister of Transport reviewed plans to develop Yemen's transport sectors and strengthen cooperation in infrastructure and logistics. Al-Umari reviewed the ministry's vision to develop transport sectors, improve services, strengthen Yemen's links with international routes and gateways, and stimulate trade and economic activity. He also discussed plans to expand and upgrade airports, including efforts to turn several local airports into international facilities, along with improving maritime transport services and operational efficiency. The minister highlighted the need to support land transport institutions, the Yemeni Shipyards Company and the Public Land Transport Corporation, while encouraging investment through reforms and facilitation measures. For his part, the EU ambassador affirmed the European Union's interest in expanding cooperation with Yemen, particularly in humanitarian assistance, development programs, and vital sectors such as transport.
Lahj Governor Murad Al-Halimi and French Ambassador to Yemen Catherine Kerm-Kamoun inspected the school kitchen project at Al Commandant School in Al Mansoura, Tuban district, implemented by the World Food Programme. The kitchen provides healthy meals for 1,400 students using locally sourced grains and vegetables. The project not only supports nutrition, but also creates jobs for youth and benefits local farmers, alongside awareness programs on health and nutrition for students.
The governor and ambassador also visited Al Husseini Farms in Lahj with the delegation from the Food and Agriculture Organization to assess the agriculture sector and explore potential support. Farmers highlighted challenges such as limited irrigation water, rising costs of imports, and the need for modernized irrigation and technologies. Al-Halimi praised the historical role of the farms in food security, while Ambassador Kerm-Kamoun commended the quality of Lahj's agricultural products and affirmed France's commitment to supporting sustainable agriculture and local livelihoods.
Minister of Water and Environment Tawfiq Al-Sharjabi met today in Aden with Yemen Aid Chairwoman Samar Nasser to review organizations' water projects in Aden and deliberated governorates, as well as preparations for the first Aden Climate Conference. The meeting discussed coordination between the ministry and the organization in water, sanitation and environmental projects aimed at supporting local communities and improving services. Al-Sharjabi praised Yemen Aid's humanitarian and development work, saying the climate conference will serve as a national platform to highlight Yemen's climate challenges and mobilize support for sustainable adaptation solutions. In a related meeting, Al-Sharjabi met UNICEF Water and Sanitation official Peter Harvey on the occasion of the end of his assignment in Yemen. They reviewed key water and sanitation projects implemented in Aden, discussed funding challenges, and explored ways to strengthen future cooperation with UNICEF. At the end of the meeting, the minister honored Harvey with a certificate of appreciation for his contributions to the sector.
Riyadh hosted the third meeting of the International Health Coordination Group for Yemen, jointly organized by the Saudi Development and Reconstruction Program for Yemen, the United Kingdom's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, and the Ministry of Public Health and Population. The meeting brought together more than 20 representatives of donors, United Nations agencies, technical experts, and government officials to align priorities, address funding gaps, and support Yemen's health sector. Minister of Public Health and Population Qasim Buhaibih said more than 18 million Yemenis needs acceptable health services, while the sector still faces a funding gap of 66%, with 2025 funding estimated at about $140 million. The meeting reviewed the National Health Strategy, the Health Fund, and mechanisms to improve coordination and transparency. Saudi Ambassador Mohammed Al Jaber announced that King Salman Medical and Educational City in Al Mahra will begin operating this year, while UK Ambassador Abida Sharif announced £25 million in new support for primary health care, especially for women and children.
Central Bank Governor Ahmed Ghalib met today in Aden with officials from commercial banks, Islamic banks and microfinance banks to discuss developments in banking activities and ongoing arrangements with regional and international banks. The meeting, attended by the leadership of the Yemen Banks Association, reviewed efforts to facilitate financial transactions between Yemen and the outside world in a way that supports banking sector stability and helps ease challenges related to transfers and external dealings. Discussions also covered compliance measures, technical training, and capacity building programs in cooperation with specialized international companies to improve the efficiency of the banking sector and strengthen alignment with international standards. The meeting further addressed arrangements to speed up import financing requests submitted through banks to the National Committee for Regulating and Financing Imports, helping ensure the flow of essential goods and market stability. Ghalib affirmed the central bank's commitment to continued coordination with banks and providing possible facilitation to support the national economy.
That was the news from SABA Satellite Channel from Matter. Thank you for watching and have a good time.